Brent Brennan is firmly off the hot seat and may need to be given an extension. Arizona sports are red hot.
You are Locked On Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into Locked On Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the number one sports podcast network around. I'm your host, Leif Thulin, your resident college basketball guru, stats nerd, point guard by game, and ball knower by trade. And I'm excited to talk Arizona hoops and football with you today. And both are red hot, like I said, and the programs are on the rise. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms and conditions do apply. Today on the show, I'll preview Arizona basketball's duel with the Denver Pioneers, discuss where Arizona must improve when, already possessing the best resume in the game. But first things first, we're going to talk about Coach Brent Brennan, and who he was once on the hot seat, and now he's guided the Wildcats to an 8-3 record prior to the final regular season game, the battle against the hated Arizona State Sun Devils. So let's dive right in. Arizona Wildcats football is red hot, rebounding from back-to-back agonizing losses against BYU and Houston, coming off of a bye week, beating a bad Colorado team, but a team that actually at the time had a good record. And so that game meant a ton. They were not good, are not good, but at the time, that was a liminal space, a transition for where Arizona was headed. Were they headed to a bad season, one that they could have repeated last year after going 4-8 last year in the initial season under Brent Brennan after losing Jedd Fisch? Was it bound to repeat itself? They find their way. They dominate that game. It was vital to come out and come out hot and win that game easily rather than getting another tough game. And then you think, okay, yeah, Colorado's all right, whatever. Let's downplay that one because they're actually not very good. But then the rubber met the road. And Arizona rallied to beat Kansas after trailing by double digits at home. They showed tremendous resolve for what still seemed like a tenuous situation from the outside perspective. We didn't know how real Arizona's locker room support for the coach was. We didn't know how real the belief for the players was, having just beaten Colorado and they front run. They were able to front run in that game because they dominated early and often against what turned out to be a very poor and not well-constructed Colorado team. Colorado was hanging on the name brand and the appeal of having Travis Hunter, having Shedeur Sanders, having Prime as the coach, but they didn't have substance. Kansas was the real transitional spot. It's a lot different to beat Kansas and clinch a bowl game in the way they did. And that seemed like a success right then and there to clinch a bowl berth. But Arizona football right now needs to recalibrate their expectations, recalibrate what they are as a football school, because that is the distant past. And they can win 10 games this year by beating Arizona State and winning a bowl game. And if I told you that when we came out of playing bad games bad results out of good games, that you would say, okay, well, if they had a change here, can they beat BYU if they could stop the run? Could they beat Houston in back-to-back agonizing losses? And if I told you, yeah, you know what, 10 games is still attainable, you'd be like, 10 games, we're not even going to get to a bowl game. Like, there were fans that were not pleased with Coach Brent Brennan, didn't believe in the program, but said, oh, the buyout's too much. And I brought up the idea of, like, look, this guy has not won a lot. Like, San Jose State's not necessarily a power, but his resume there isn't one that's saying, wow, he's won every game. It's not Kirk Cignetti at Indiana when he was at James Madison prior to that. It wasn't sparkling and shining in the way that, cross-sport reference here, but Ben McCollum, who's now at Iowa, who won at Drake and got to the second round of the tournament, and how he'd won everywhere he went in D2. You know, I understand San Jose State's not necessarily the perfect program, but there was real cause for panic. But now, double-digit wins is attainable, and it's the sign of legitimacy in college football, because no bad teams stumble their way to win double-digit games. Very good teams win 10 games. Arizona hasn't done it yet, but they have a chance to have a season that accelerates their future through building the foundations with the present on the strength of Coach Brent Brennan's leadership and ability to keep the team together and engaged, because that was no small task, keeping the team believing that they're a very good team. A one that could have easily been 6-1 to start the year. Instead, we're 4-3 and 1-3 in conference play. And now you can be 10-3 to finish the year. That's attainable. And I don't think it's crazy either. And that's really a testament to the leadership and ability to keep the team engaged, like I said. So let's recount these wins and talk about the expectations as those things happened. I think revisionist history will minimize the importance of beating Colorado because Colorado wasn't good, and they haven't been since then. But at the time, it meant something to believe that the season was not in the toilet. Beating Kansas and clinching a bowl berth was important, no doubt. And in doing so, after trailing by 10 at home, absolutely mattered and may have truly saved Brent Brennan's job, because college sports is a reactionary industry. As I record this, this weekend, Justin Wilcox has been fired from Cal after resurrecting. They haven't been great, but they got to a bowl game after resurrecting an awful Cal program, leading them to a bowl berth, and just recently beating number 15 Louisville. But then they got smoked in big game by Stanford, and he's gone. The larger idea of this is not to say, oh, like, woe is Cal, and Arizona is similar to Cal. It's not that. It's just to recognize how quickly tides can turn in sports, and especially in college sports, how fickle everything is. And if Arizona had lost to Kansas, that could have spelled the end because of impatience. And instead, that winning that game became the beginning of what could be the great story for Arizona football as a program, not just this season, but a great story for Coach Brent Brennan and the program as a whole going forward. It's a foundational win. So they basically win on a walk-off touchdown from Quincy Craig in that game. And then they battle number 22 Cincinnati on the road in a day game in Cincinnati after Cincinnati comes off a bye after being smoked by Utah. Cincy was favored by 5. I predicted Cincy would win that game. Hand up, I'm sorry. And then the other headline would be Fafita versus Sorsby, two of the best quarterbacks in the Big 12. Arizona's defense gets into the mix and forces a turnover from Sorsby early, and Arizona is able to beat the Bearcats in a game that they were the better team throughout. They were the deserving team, and they win on the road against a ranked team. And that was the most impressive win of the season, in my opinion. And it's one that early in the year, I don't think Arizona was going to do, because they've lost winnable games. They found a way to lose in games that they could have won, and really good teams find a way to win in games they could have lost. And I think they reverted it in the game against Kansas and became a really good team. And they were able to win this game, and it was not necessarily a straight line, but it wasn't the craziest way to win. They were able to win this game, being the better team throughout that game. And then Arizona's running well. The defense encouraged after Cincinnati, and you still got Noah Fafita. And if you put that all together, you should win big against inferior opponents. And then they pulverized Baylor, who has a very talented quarterback. And that's where we are right now. From 1-3 in conference play, and hot seat rumors scalding hot from myself included, to Coach Brent Brennan deserving all of our praise and then some, and a potential to win 10 games and have Noah Fafita be a contender to win Offensive Player of the Year. It's unlikely, but not impossible. And if I told you before the year, before any of this started, that what I just recounted happened, that before playing the 99th Territorial Cup against the Arizona State Sun Devils, that Arizona would be 8-3 and 5-3 in conference play, but I didn't tell you how you got there, you'd take that in a heartbeat. And if you're not, you're lying to yourself. Please tell me in the comments if I'm wrong. And I think you guys would sing the praises of Brent Brennan if that was the story, for revitalizing the program. And especially if I told you after the fact exactly how it happened, you'd say, wow, that shows incredible resolve, resiliency. And to me, the amazing rebuild that's happened mid-season and the revitalization of a program in the last 4 weeks is so rare in college sports, rather as opposed to in this culture of transferring, in this culture of leaving. It's so rare that this happens. In a market as fickle as coaching, I think most of the times a less circuitous route to a successful season like this, and you get there, whether it's a 8-3 and it's, they start off 6-2 and, you go decent finish, but you're 8-3 in a second year after going 4-8 in your first year, you'd be a hot commodity to land a different place. And you'd be a candidate to be a up-and-coming coach to go to a big school like an LSU that's vacant. but you'd certainly be a candidate to re-sign and get extended. That's not the narrative that's out here, but it's the narrative that I think would happen if there were not this circuitous route to getting 8-3, and I think it even deserves more praise. Brent Brennan is safe and may even be extended. Coming up next, we're going to discuss that possibility, also touch on the matchup with ASU, and just discuss how rare it is to be 8-3 in the college football world of today. The holiday season is right around the corner, and that means it's time to get your home ready. Whether you need more seating for guests, cozy new linens, or fun serveware for holiday hosting, Wayfair's Black Friday sale is here to make you and your special place shine. And the best part, you don't have to wait. Wayfair's Black Friday deals are happening all month long, up to 70% off of everything from sofas, the big things like that, or the small things like spatulas. It's all up to 70% off on Wayfair. Browsing through their site, it's easy to find pieces that actually fit my style. Nothing generic, just quality designs that feel personal. If you've ever hosted family for the holidays, you know how much difference a few new touches can make. Wayfair makes that easy. So don't miss out on the early Black Friday deals. Head to wayfair.com to shop Wayfair's Black Friday sale up to 70% off. That's WAYFAIR.com. Sale ends December 7th. Thank you guys for making Locked On Wildcats your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On Wildcats the number one sports podcast network around. We really appreciate you guys. Leif Thulin with you here on Locked On Wildcats, and I've got a stat for you. This is how I'm going to open it up. There are 26 Power 4 conference teams with 8-3 records or better. Your Arizona Wildcats are one of them. And not all these teams have played good opponents. A lot of them have coasted. Arizona, I need to remind you, could be 10-1 pretty easily if a few bounces happen the right way. They're not, but what they are is one of the hottest teams in college football, led by one of the better quarterbacks and a rejuvenated team and fan base heading into this end of the season with serious belief. Whereas many teams, even in the best of the best, the 26 8-3 or better teams, many are exhausted, beaten down, maybe failing per their illustrious standards, saying, my goodness, we should be better. How could we have let that slip? Having coaching issues. Arizona has about as good of morale as you could possibly have going towards the end of the season, and you're 8-3. Arizona is achieving at the top end of what even the most optimistic Arizona fans could have dreamt. And now have a chance to knock off ASU in the Territorial Cup, the 99th installment, and to really finish this Big 12 season strong and build momentum. And when I talk about building momentum, I think it's very akin to what Jedd Fisch did. This reminded me of something, in fact, when I was researching. A surprisingly good Arizona team beat a reeling team by a very similar score. And that a surprisingly good Arizona team, at least from the outside perspective, was the one that Jedd Fisch led before departing to Washington. They beat a Utah team 42-18, and that was a Utah team that was supposed to be good and had high hopes, and I think they were picked to win the Pac-12 that year. Arizona improved to 6-2 in Pac-12 play, and Utah fell to 4-4 in Pac-12 play, showing a changing of the tides. One team that had their program at historic heights, making 4 of 5 Pac-12 championship appearances under Cam Rising with Kyle Whittingham at the helm. And you run into a question of, okay, what's next? And then there's a question for Arizona. What's next? But it's one of intrigue and optimism as opposed to worry. And that was a surprisingly good team. Baylor was not heralded as much as this Utah team was, but it reminded me of that game because the score was very close, 41-17 over Baylor, 42-18 over Utah, but more so because of the optimism around the future of the program rather than just a pleasant surprise for doing well. That got interrupted due to Jedd Fisch going to Washington. And then in came Brent Brennan. And the next year was tumultuous, despite having Noah Fifita, despite having Teteroa McMillan. But those guys stay and play under him. Fifita stays an extra year, and here we are now. So rather than a plain old pleasant surprise and you're happy to be, 7 wins, make a bowl, and rather than just be pleasant surprise, you're 8-3 right now. Arizona has a real chance to finish the season with double-digit wins. And I don't think even the most optimistic Arizona fans thought that was possible. And correct me if I'm wrong there. If all goes well, Arizona can beat ASU, And I think that is very possible due to the injuries for ASU and the just general positivity around the program for Arizona. And then you win a bowl game. And those bowl games, you never know where you're going to land. You might play a formidable opponent, you might not. But I feel like this team is going to be thrilled to play in a bowl game. And so much of bowl games, when you're not in the playoff, is how much and how badly you want to win it, as opposed to just being like, okay, I guess we made it. Because some of the teams that, like I said, are 8-3 right now, don't feel that optimism, don't feel that belief. And additionally, having a chance to do so with rattling off so many wins, where many teams in the Big 12 are in a state of dysfunction after a relatively new coach is joined, has joined. Many of those teams in the Big 12, many of those teams in the country are in a state of dysfunction when you have a second-year head coach. Because typically when you have a new head coach, that means things weren't going well. For Arizona, it was a little different. You were starting to play better. Jed Fish leaves. You have a bad year. And there's not many teams that went from 4-8 last year to having a chance to get double-digit wins. There really are not. Colorado, Kansas at home. So at Colorado, winning against Kansas at home, which was practically a must-win. That was like, if you do that, you can win a bowl, because that's as far as you're going to go. Then you go to the ranked Cincinnati matchup. You go to Baylor as an NFL quarterback. And then you close at ASU, where Sam Leavitt is there. I know Leavitt's out now, but these are the notes I wrote when I first took over the show, saying, you know what, this is dysfunctional, and you lose close games, and there's so many people believing Brent Brennan needs to be fired. And look at how the tone has changed. The tenor of this conversation is so different, because when I wrote that out, I thought best case scenario for Arizona was 7 wins. And many of you said the exact same thing in the comments. So don't let revisionist history change that. I thought 7 wins, hand up. That's what I thought. I thought 8 was best case scenario. Now I think 10 is mightily possible. And about a month ago, that was the schedule I laid. It seemed daunting. It seemed possible to miss a bowl altogether. And it seemed that 7 was the main number as to like what was expected and the highest outcome attainable. 10 is available. And I honestly wouldn't be shocked at all if it happens. Arizona's eclipsed all expectations that I set midseason. And I think this stat that I'll let you guys cogitate and digest will really tell you how far they've overachieved. Other teams with coaches in their second year that are the same record or better than Arizona are to the following. The two are Alabama with Kalen DeBoer and Kurt Cignetti at Indiana. That's it. That's the only second-year head coaches of high major schools with better records than Arizona. And Coach Brent Brennan has his program rolling. And rather than being a candidate to lose his job, he may well earn an extension or at least external interest from other programs that'll take note of how this season went for Arizona, how he kept the program together, which is so hard to do today in the transfer portal era. And as for what's next, ASU, I think both teams in the college football playoff might be ranked. According to the AP, neither were ranked. One was 26, one was 29. So you're really getting similar teams. And the Wildcats on the road, according to ESPN thus far, are favorites. 1.5 point favorites. Likely due to the very turnover-prone quarterback, and that's Sims at quarterback, not the starter, Sam Leavitt, who's NFL caliber and all that. It does put a damper on things, just like Terrace Reed being out for UConn, but you can't complain about that. Who's on the field is who's on the field at November football. This is a massive game. No ifs, ands, or buts about it, and we're going to break it down further later on this week. But first, we're going to preview Arizona basketball with a battle with the Denver Pioneers and what should be the number 1 team in the country, likely will be number 2 in their first game ranked in that top 2. All that and more coming up ahead on Locked On Wildcats. College football's back, and I couldn't be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, there's nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel like more of a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. I pulled up Game Time, and in just a couple taps, I saw amazing deals. I'm talking about your favorite college football games as low as $25. It's faster, cheaper, and less stressful than any other way I've bought tickets. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. And again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket. Go download Game Time today. Thank you guys for making Locked On Wildcats your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network around. We sincerely appreciate it. I'm Leif Thulin with you here. And now let's talk Arizona hoops. Arizona is 5-0 with wins over Florida, UCLA, and on the road at UConn, all of whom were ranked higher than Arizona prior to the season. And that gives Arizona easily the best resume in college hoops. And there's many arguments to be made that they have performed as the best team, bar none. But the encouraging thing, more so than even that I just rattled off, is that there are plenty of areas that are tangible and attainable for improvement to be made for both the team as a whole, but maybe more importantly for individuals. And I think that Arizona, as of now, if the season ended today, is a Final Four contender and maybe the favorite because they've played the most difficult teams and have survived in different fashions. But I said this last week, and I think this is really important to recognize. No team that actually has the capacity to win an NCAA championship is better in November than they will be in April and, of course, in March to get to April. What that means is you got to continually, steadily improve. And the biggest headliner of who must improve for Arizona is, of course, the 5-star freshman Braden Burries. He's shot poorly, no doubt about it, and he's pressed at times, been a bit overzealous, tried to make things happen, get through the frustration. He's had turnover, he's gotten foul trouble. And I think all of that is good to be able to survive a guy that you expected to be a top contributor and is a starter and has played big minutes even through mistakes. To be able to survive that and beat the aforementioned Florida, UCLA, and UConns of the world, you got to have a great team. And that they do. But I expect this game against Denver to be a Braden Burries game. I said this against Utah Tech. I said I expect Braden Burries to lead the team in shot attempts and lead the team in points. He was tied for points with 18. It was a three-way tie between Del Orso, Pete, and Burries. And I also said that he'd lead the team in shot attempts. He did. He shot 16 times. 18 points and 16 shots, not particularly great. And that is what I'm going to lead to next. At this point, Burries is shooting 33% from the field, shooting the third most attempts on the team, and having a fairly minimal impact on the team. And the team is still 5-0 with the best 3 wins in the country. Like the UConn win is probably the best win of anyone in the country. The only one that parallels it is probably when Purdue went to Alabama and beat Alabama. Like that's the only one that's close. And Purdue may well be the #1 team in the country. They thrashed Texas Tech. I don't think Texas Tech is very good yet. But he's shooting, speaking of Burries again, he's shooting 30%, actually lower, 29.6% from 3, and shooting 33% from the field. And that's the guy you thought was going to be the third leading scorer of the team, and you've been able to beat those teams. That means there's a lot of room for growth, and I think that's growth that's not wishful. It's likely. I'd be stunned if those numbers don't improve. And I think this bodes extremely well for Arizona to have a guy capable of creating 42 shots like he's taken through 5 games. And I think it's likely that that guy will find his stroke better than 29% from 3 and 33% overall. He'll get his chance. And he'll get his chance again and again during the non-conference, especially against teams that are bye games like Denver. So he's ready to expose those teams and expose teams, more importantly, that try to double co-opete on the interior and dare others to hit threes. He's not supposed to be in the others category. He's supposed to be in a tertiary role behind Pete and Bradley, but he's not supposed to be an ancillary piece. This is a guy that's supposed to star in his role, and he has not done so yet. In fact, he's performed poorly. And yet, like I said, Arizona has 3 of the best wins in college basketball and significantly, by far, the best resume in college basketball. And I have no doubt he'll be able to punish teams and knock down open threes. He just needs to get the lid off, and the yips will pass by. He is too talented of a player. And I think the craziest thing that we might discuss further another time is if he doesn't improve that much, does he stay at Arizona an extra year? I don't want to get ahead of myself because a lot of people thought, okay, it's a one and done. Bleacher Report had him number 9 on their mock draft. That's something to be talked about another time. But the larger ramification is this team's good enough to win a championship, but they need improvement from the freshmen. And let's talk about another freshman. And actually, one more thing about Braden Burries. I want to say and applaud his defensive engagement and effort because it's been admirable to battle through and battle as hard as he has while shooting as poorly as he has. And you're going to be saying, well, that's his job. It's expected. You have to defend. It's hard to expect to be a really good scorer. It's hard to score 22 against St. Mary's and, 22 in the scrimmage, inter-squad scrimmage out of the 45 points, and then play well against St. Mary's and then go in and really struggle and then say, okay, how am I going to find a way to impact? Yeah, that's where the mistakes happen. That's where the pressing happens. Well, offensively, nothing's going his way, but defensively, he's competed and defended very, very well. Then let's get to the other one. The other one in the starting lineup that's not Kopi, that's Ivan Karchenkov. I love Karchenkov because he battles on D, rebounds, plays super hard, runs the floor, but his shooting's been abysmal since the first game where he went 2 of 2 from 3. He's shooting 28% from the field and 23% from 3, including one of his last 11. Aristotle had a monstrous game, but has been silent in the other games. So 3 of the 4 freshmen that play significant minutes have not been very good. And Koa Pete had one really bad game too. Growing pains will happen. That's often the critique of the teams like Duke and Kentucky, that they have too many freshmen. But realistically, the teams with star freshmen and then a few veteran pieces have been the most successful ones in the Calipari tenure at Kentucky and Coach K's time at Duke and now Shire's time at Duke. There are 3 freshmen on this team set to vastly improve as a whole, and shooting will be something that we'll monitor all year long. But I just wanted to lay that out as the groundwork. Very attainable to improve. Like, I expect improvement. And this is from a team that's already shooting pretty well in terms of percentage. But let's look at this again. The good thing is Arizona's proven they don't need to shoot well and shoot many at all to win at a high level. They've beaten these teams combined to make 10 threes. That's 3.3 threes made per game in 3 marquee wins and none of them were at McHale. And they'll likely need to improve to win it all and make it a more credible threat because Arizona's 349th in the nation in percent of points accounted for by 3-pointers and 361st in 3-pointers attempted. And strangely, what Arizona must incorporate more is shooting the ball, and they actually shot it well at 37%. It's just showing that they can round out the rough edges of an offense that is dynamic. They're already a top 10 offense. This is a team that's balanced, has leaders on both ends, and they have an identity on both ends. And what's going to happen is have growth from young guys. That's something that happens organically on a college basketball floor. This is a team that's already 10th on offense, 10th in defense, and that's not too shabby whatsoever. And dominance on the glass is happening, and I think that'll improve Arizona's overall ability to win games because they'll get extra chances for what is already an excellent first shot offense. So let's preview what to expect against Denver, right? So they actually just beat Colorado State. And if you guys are March Madness fanatics like me, you'll remember they made the second round, upsetting Memphis. And then they nearly beat Maryland. It took a Derek Queen game winner to prevent the Rams from going to the Sweet 16. So with that said, it absolutely should be a comfortable Arizona win. And anything other than that should be a concern to us. Denver is offensively solidly averaging 108 points per 100 possessions, I should say. And they shoot 39.6% from 3. Those are the 2 points to know. Their threes comprise 35% of their points, which is pretty high. And against Colorado State, whom they beat, they made 10 threes in that game and had 4 players score in double digits. In fairness, Colorado State, that they beat, lost all of their main horses, including an NBA first-round pick in Neat Clifford. But the recipe is simple for Denver. It's simple for pretty much anyone Arizona plays that is not a high major D1 team. The recipe is shoot a lot of threes and hope. Because the way to stay with Arizona is you got to shoot more threes while they're dominating from 2. That's their best chance, just like all these bye-game teams are. It's to get hot from 3 against a staunch Arizona defense, and you hope that they have an off-night shooting from in tight. Even though Arizona hasn't shot that well from 2 at times, you can't overcommit. And if you do, then if they can hit some threes, you're toast. And that's why we're rounding out the offense for Arizona. And the defense for Arizona has been better and better since the NAU game. In fact, it's been great since the NAU game. They've done a great job preventing drivers from getting to the rim. They've funneled into Mo Krivas, stayed in front, and kept spray out threes from happening and prevented them from being open, frankly. And they've kept Krivas away from foul trouble, and as a whole have not sent teams to the free throw line as much as they did in the first 3 games of the season. Arizona was very intentional with how they built those last couple games. NAU was preparation for UCLA, and in a strange way, UCLA helped Arizona prepare for UConn. And in the 2 games against NAU and Utah Tech, the recipe for those 2 teams was make a bunch of threes. The Arizona only conceded 10 combined threes in those games on 38 attempts. That's good defense. And the keys I'd give today are dominating the glass, of course, and this time I'd say by 15 or more. Make more threes than Denver would be the goal I'd give, despite taking likely far fewer. I think it's possible because a team that liked to shoot threes went 4-16 against Arizona because they make you take difficult ones because they don't need as much help on the interior. You're not going to generate as good of looks. And then establish confidence in Burries, Karchenkov, and Aristo. And I want to see them combine for 6 threes or more between the trio. And I expect Burries to lead the team in field goal attempts. I hope in points as well. And due to the slow tempo employed by Denver, I don't expect Arizona to really get up and down and score a ton unless they get into passing lanes and get 20 or so points off of fast breaks. With these numbers all in mind, I'll go with the final score because I like predictions, and I know some of you guys like them as well. I hope you guys send in your score predictions. I'm going to go with 88-60 to score, with Arizona easily winning, with Burries and Krivas leading the way. I'll go Burries with 18, Krivas with 15, and 4 Wildcats scoring double digits. And this is a game that's a bit of an experiment to see how well you can play through Burries, and then the defense takes over and makes it difficult. And this game's on CBS Sports Network. Hopefully you guys have that, and hopefully you guys watch, talk to me on Twitter, and all the same things we usually do. But make sure to tune into Postcast with me, and we'll discuss this game in depth and have fun as always on Postcast. Thank you guys for making Locked On Wildcats your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Locked On Big 12. Drake Toll breaks down the most exciting conference in college sports, from the rivalries to the championships and every game in between. Find Locked On Big 12 on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.